Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals, and part of what we do along with special guests are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a load of questions submitted already, as you can see, but if there's anybody here live on the call who would like to ask any questions, feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, there's usually a bunch of other amazing SEOs on the call. And I think one of the best things about office hours isn't just the four of us sharing our perspectives and ideas, but everybody else sharing as well. So please continue to do that. And thank you very much to those that contribute. And like every week, with me today is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Good morning, happy Friday.
Good morning. Yes, happy Friday indeed. And thank you everyone for joining us at our 57th episode. We've been running this for over 1 year and I believe 3 months now, nearly. Started that in November 2023. So thank you to our guests for joining us. Simon, John, Monse, Rob, Sarab, Naveen, Albert, Neil, Naomi, Daniel, Dan, Helen, Walid, Jordan, Favor, Shahriar. And of course, thank you to our special guests for coming back to us today, Isaac and Roxana. Oh, and we have also Idris joining us as a guest. So as Mike said, I'm Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs on Twitter and also on B-Sky. Thanks, Simon. I really like B-Sky for that. It seems like a great place to connect with everyone. And I'm here in Barcelona, Spain. I run a small digital consultancy business called Turn Global, but also outside of that, I do events. Love events. So I do Search London, been doing that for 14 years, and Search Barcelona now, 1.5 years. And we have some people that are attending today that have attended Search Barcelona or London. And our next one is in February. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our special guests back because they joined us last year when we only just started. We have Roxana and Isaac. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
So Roxana, I'd like to first do a brief intro to Roxana. Where do I begin? She's come on the show in March last year, but also she's been speaking at many events for many years, and she's also a mentor in different communities. Roxana, you are currently the head of SEO and search at Alame. You specialize in tech SEO and image SEO for these large enterprise websites. You also oversee the internal search engine that handles over, I was quite impressed with that, 400 million assets.
Yep.
That's quite a lot. And on top of that, as I briefly mentioned, you've spoken at many events. You have Brighton SEO. I think I first saw you at WTS Fest, but you've also been a judge for the industry-based awards like UK Dev Awards. And you also, as you contributed to many different publications, including the Mastering In-House SEO. So you are so busy. When do you have time to have a rest?
I don't have a life. That's how I do it.
And well, thank you very much for joining us back on the show. I'm looking forward to some of your answers. You have a lot of tech SEO experience, so we'll be asking some of those questions. And hello, Isaac. Welcome back to SEO Office Hours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It actually was like a year ago, like it was 26th of January last year when I came here for the first time. So I'm very glad to be back.
Well, we're very glad to have you back. And you're also a fellow person in Barcelona, and also you support Search Barcelona. So thank you very much. But that's not the reason why you're on the show. We loved having you back, having you last time. You are currently the SEO content lead at Olafly. Olafly helps travelers stay connected wherever they go. Great company. Check them out. And at the company, Isaac is responsible for building a long-term strategy and vision for the Olafly blogs. If you don't know, he used to work at Wise, 8 years. It's very impressive. You worked there in Tallinn and Budapest because you facilitated their growth into multiple European markets. You also worked as a mentor and a coach to support the growth team. And you're very active in the SEO community. You spoke at Search Barcelona, and you've been at events such as International Search Summit. So very impressive what you're also doing. So you sound very, very busy. And do you have some time out, Isa?
Well, I find some time out, like I have to, right? Like we need to balance our life, right? but so glad to join the SEO community. I think everyone is always so nice, so friendly. And in Barcelona, we have a big chunk of them. And anytime that I've gone to Brighton or other places, also people there were amazing. So I just enjoy a lot connecting with people.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on the show. And actually, Jordan said in his chat, Eastern Europeans in SEO. So we've got lots of people from different parts of the world as well. I see we've got people dialing in from Pakistan, India, Nigeria, and if anyone else writes where you're dialing in from, Slovenia too, please write in the chat. We also like to have an international SEO office hours. Perhaps I'm biased because I'm not really from one particular country, so I always like when there's lots of different people from different parts of the world. So I'll pass over to you, Mike, because we've got a very busy SEO office hours today.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we've got tons of questions. But as I said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat. First question, we've been working on a website for our school, but we've hit a bit of a bump. We can't transfer the old site since the previous website address was part of a larger network rather than a standalone one. Our only option seems to be to delete it. Does that sound like the right move, or is there another way forward? Just a flag, we're not very tech savvy. And so I'm assuming when they say it's part of a larger network, that it's either one of these sort of academies or federations that's like, you know, where there's multiple schools, or it could be sort of a subdomain of something like WordPress or something like that. Does anybody have any thoughts? So they've obviously created, or they're creating a new website, and what do they do with the old one that they can't redirect? Who would like to kick off?
I'll take this.
Go for it.
It's quite an interesting issue, and I wish I had better news. But usually with these type of setups, if they don't own the domain, or they're on a subdomain, or they just have like a folder, they don't really control much of what they can do. Ideally, I would say, and especially if they're non-technical, if they have access to a field that allows them to update the canonical tag, I would recreate their content on a new domain, and then on this old network, I would put canonical tags towards the new domain to kind of signal this content has moved. I think that would be the least technical way of doing it, but that would mean they would have access to be able to do that. And I guess it depends on the platform if that type of access exists or not. Of course, a better way to do it would be to redirect the old URLs from that network to their new site, wherever they build it, which again would require even more access because you do that server side. So I would assume that is quite hard for them to do. But try canonical tags. And if you can't do that, I guess the worst is you just rebuild. You start over again, but then look at external links. So if you had backlinks pointing to your content on that network, just try to talk to those people linking to it and say, hey, we moved to a new space. Do you mind linking to our new URL instead? And you might be able to send those signals to your new domain and help it kind of get discovered and rebuild some of that visibility, if you have it, a little bit faster this way.
Amazing. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, that was excellent. Thank you, Roxana. I do have a comment from Simon that I'd like to share. He said to scrape the site using something like a site sucker and then dump the old site. Or you can pay someone like himself to do it. He'll work for, you said school dinners, but I think maybe it depends if it's Jamie Oliver school dinners, maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah, not the school dinners I used to have. Do you have anything to add?
To be honest, I think Roxana really defined it really well. I was thinking about 301s, of course, and so basically redirect, so creating something new, and before it launches, just try to agree with the others to redirect those pages. So that would be the most ideal. And I think she made a really good point. And remembering what were the external links and try to reach those people to get them back, right? So yeah, I wouldn't add anything else, to be honest. I think it was great.
Great. Yeah, I love the sort of trying to send those other signals that you could potentially control, and your links from even things like the ones that you own, like your social profiles, all of those things, but then also reaching out to some places to do that. I think one of the things I would say is just make sure that the new site is really optimized towards things like the school name, and that you're using terms like school, for example, in things like the title tag, because often with school names, they can be the same as the local church as well, and the town hall and so on. They often share the same names. So just make sure that for a start that you do that. So you're basically saying about whether or not you should delete it. And I think that's potentially something you could do a bit later on. One thing I'd probably do is strip down the current site if you can and reference the new site on the current website. So on the homepage or something like that, if you can change some of the text on there to say that our site's moved and this is now the address, and sort of create that relationship initially before you end up deleting it. But what Roxana was saying, if you can control things like the rel canonical tags, which are just SEO tags, where you're effectively saying that this content is the same as this place over here, so can you pass that value over to here? That would be the ideal situation if you can't redirect. Amazing.
One more thing.
Yeah, of course you can. Go for it.
Yeah, I was also thinking like something that some people always forget is just to remember to create their new Google business profile and to make sure that all the information is updated there. Because then you look for the new school and it doesn't appear in Google Maps or it doesn't appear anywhere. And I think some people forget that simple thing sometimes as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Oh, go for it, Joe. Sorry.
No, I just want to say when we're looking at new websites, just give it the opportunity, make sure that you have the opportunity to also go through the old content. In this case, yes, perhaps you're not able to transfer all the content over, but just see that maybe as a good thing. You might not need all that content. Just try and trim it down. And if you haven't used sort of the pillar page and topic cluster strategy before, this might be an opportunity where you can actually do that and try and focus on highlighting your USPs for that school, why it's better than perhaps any other one. And people also love to see photos of extracurricular activities that you're doing, which you might not have been able to do, might have some limitations on your old site. So use this as an opportunity to trim down your content and perhaps also add more around more visual and video too.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is just to flag, we're not very tech savvy. Without sounding too technical, there is a tool called Google Search Console that you could basically use on the new website just to make sure that, sorry, I just realized I haven't got my laptop plugged in, on the new website, just to make sure that your new site is ranking and getting traffic and appearing for searches for things like your school name and stuff like that. It's a really simple tool to use, and within about 10-15 minutes of using it, you'll be able to work out how to find all that information. And then the only other thing I was going to say is what people often forget is that particularly with schools, you'll have things like headed paper and you'll have emails and all of those things with your website address. And I would just update that because what you want is everybody to start using the new website. And so I think the more interaction you get on that site, the better. But I think before you start deleting the current website, just do the thing that I said with Google Search Console, where you can see if your current website is appearing in those search results. Because if it isn't, there's probably some sort of issue that you need to fix. Great. Anybody else would like to add anything, or should we jump on to the next one?
No,
Let's go to the next one. Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. We've got loads of questions.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be like a 2-minute question answer, but actually we all really got into it. Okay, next question. I'm looking at historic redirect mapping, and it looks like it was done, but only half of them 404. So somebody didn't actually implement the redirects. Unsure if that's the devs or the SEO. So I guess that should be my priority. How can I find all external links or URLs on our website that have ever existed?
I feel like there are two questions here. One is, yes, how can you find a website's URLs, as many of them as possible? And the second would be, should you fix those redirects, right? So for the first one, to find as many URLs, the way I do it is, of course, I start a crawl, but that will only show you URLs that are connected from other pages, so with internal linking. I then look to find, are there any sitemaps? Again, that could just be the URLs that are connected because somebody created a sitemap from a crawl. But it could be that it's like, for instance, WordPress will just put URLs in a sitemap if you put a page live, even if it's not linked. So you might have a good chance looking in sitemaps as well. I always look in my analytics. I go as far back as I can and I download a list of all the URLs I can get from there with parameters, with everything, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. It could be campaign pages that never got linked from anywhere, but they were shared, so they did attract traffic. So don't just look at organic, look at everything. And then I guess just do a search in Google, in Bing, in Yahoo, different search engines. They will have different indexes, so you might find different things. Even look at backlink tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, Majestic, whatever you use. Just do a check, go as far back as you can, just see what are the linked pages that have backlinks, and try to get a list from there as well. Because they might be orphan pages, but if they have backlinks and those are coming from trusted domains, you might want to make sure you promote those pages differently at this point. I don't know what else. Anybody else, any more ideas on how to get more pages?
I thought that was really good. I would say if you've already set up like crawls before, using SEMrush or Ahrefs or SE ranking, you can actually go back to those crawls and see what any 404 errors were or what they were not done, and you can see if there's a difference. And I would say if you have Google Search Console, I really like Google Search Console. It's great. So ideally, you should be like exporting some of this data on a regular basis because it only goes back 16 months. So have a look and see if you have this data from before, what the URLs were. It says half of them 404, so some didn't implement the redirect. So see if your 404s have actually increased or not, and then look to resolve them. But try and actually, if you can, look at historic data. And if you don't have it, make sure you do that going forwards.
Simon actually pointed something out to use archive.org or Wayback Machine. And probably a least known feature is that you can see like a sitemap of your website of all the pages that Wayback Machine has registered for you in time. So that can give you another of those snapshots. Nice one, Simon. I forgot about that one.
Thank you, Simon.
Amazing. Do you have anything to add?
Not really. I think Roxana already touched the most important things. And I think the most important is just to try to download all those things from different sources. It's what she was saying. You're looking at Majestic, we're looking at Ahrefs, you're looking at SEMrush, for example. So the more data you get, the more things you'll find. So for example, for us, we just found like this Monday, like a lot big chunk of URLs, and we discovered thanks to that, like that we had created a little problem, right? And keep running these things like periodically, like probably I would say that just so make sure that these things don't happen to you. And if something happens, you can really fix it as soon as possible, basically.
Great.
And for the
Sorry, go
second
for it.
part of the question, sorry, because I felt like it was two different problems. With redirects, there's a misconception that we have to redirect every single page somewhere, right? And we know that's not true. If a page has no more value, there's no relevant other pages to send it to or anything like that. Just let it 404. It's fine. The internet is full of 404s and it's not really a problem. It just signals whatever content you stumbled upon should not be here anymore and it isn't, and that's fine, right? So with those URLs specifically, I would check, do they still get hits and do they still have backlinks? And if not, let them 404 because there's no value there. If you do find that people still find your links, try to find out how, go to those websites and understand how are they driving traffic to dead pages. And is it a matter of you want to redirect it somewhere more relevant? Maybe you have a new page, different URL, but same kind of type of content in terms of relevancy. Or maybe you just want to change it altogether, but don't just redirect everything for the sake of it. Like your configuration file, well, you put redirects, that can slow your website down at some point. And I know it's like tens of thousands of redirects when you actually fill it. But when you have an old website or quite a big business, you can end up with a very large file. So just be mindful of that. If there's value, redirect. If there isn't, just 404.
Good point, Roxana. And also just use that again as an opportunity to like, okay, there's things that maybe we don't need to redirect. We don't need this content anymore. Preeti said about 410ing some of the sites as well, some of the URLs. So yeah, don't think that you need to redirect every single URL that you've had on your website.
Amazing. I don't have anything to add to the second part of the question. The only thing I would add to the first is you could also find somebody in the business who has been there a long time and knows the history of it. And they'll be able to run through how the site's changed and so on, if I find that can be quite useful. Yeah, that was it for me. Just particularly if the CEO, the entrepreneur who started the website is still involved in the business, that person will be quite a useful person to say, we used to have 10 landing pages for the same thing because they have different keywords and stuff like that. And now we redirect them, and they might have some copies of old redirect files that you can look through. Great. Next question. Amazing. Joe, is there anything else in the chat, or should we jump straight into the
There's
next
nothing
one?
else in the chat, but I just want to say thank you to those that are watching the recording. And if you want to join us live, you always can. Just go to goodsignals.com/SEO-office-hours. And Mike will send you a calendar invite to watch us live at 9:30 a.m. GMT. If you are watching the recording, click a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then those also that are watching us live, you can do that so that you'll never miss a show. And back to you, Mike.
Great. Yeah. Sorry if it takes a bit of time between you signing up and then getting the calendar invite. It's only because I manually add people to avoid any kind of bots or anything like that coming on and doing weird things during the office hours. So yeah, I often get people applying like 4 or 5 times, and I'm so sorry. Okay, next question. We'll go for this one. So my SEO agency keeps telling me that lower organic traffic, despite higher rankings, is just down to changes in the search results. But I'm not convinced. On paper, the reports look great, but the commercial reality tells a different story. They're now saying if I pay more, they'll do more. Am I just being taken for a ride here? A year from now, will I be in the same position, only with less money in my pocket? Can I just say that's not a client of mine? Just want to start with
Thanks,
that.
God.
Okay, who would like to kick off on this one?
Oh, so I just want to say on this one, because I worked agency side, client side, and also freelance, and also for SaaS brands. And yeah, you have to be careful when you have help in any capacity. So you need to always set a brief for when you want help in it, obviously in this case SEO, and make sure that people are adhering to that brief and you're getting the value that you want. So in this case, if they're saying that the SEO agency keeps telling me that lower organic traffic despite higher rankings is just down to some changes in search results, I would say it depends really on what is the product, because seasonality does take an impact on this. So for example, you may see more people obviously searching for flights, for example, at certain times of the year, January blues, and obviously depending on the country that you're in too, you may see more or less. So I would just say it looks like you haven't got all the actual information from them, and they are your agency. So make sure that you get that from them. The reports look great, but the commercial reality tells a different story. So you're looking at, maybe you're not getting the sales that you want, but overall in the market, you might not be seeing the sales for that. For example, if you're selling, I don't know, Christmas products, of course, in January, you're not going to see the sales of those particular Christmas products. But if you're, for example, in a place like Australia, they have Christmas in July. So you see a big bump up and then. So we really need to have a little bit more information from yourself to give you, I would say, more of a concrete answer. But in this case, I would say you need to actually ask for more granular detail from your agency. If they say that if you pay more, they'll do more, they may be talking about things like digital PR. They may have said in the past that they will be able to offer you other services like digital PR, generating more brand awareness, doing more, maybe webinars with you. We don't know. Maybe they would also be helping you with email marketing. So go back to your original brief, see what they said that they would do for the amount, and see how much it would be for example, digital PR campaigns or help with email marketing. It just sounds like they're not giving you clarity on what they're doing for that money. So I'd go back to them.
Great. Zach, do you have anything to add?
It's actually a very interesting question. I think a lot of people always suffer from this thing when talking to their agency. I think one of the questions that this person was asking is whether this is right or not. Like, yeah, it can happen that the SERP has changed. It can happen that the impressions maybe are lower. So these are things that you can track, or you can maybe ask someone to help you to show you like how to track this if you don't know how to, right? So these things are definitely possible. Also, something that I would be careful with is sometimes I've seen in some agencies, some people that use this average position. We've improved our average position. Okay, we've improved the average position in Google Search Console for certain pages, but did we improve for the right keyword, for the ones that we really, really want? And here sometimes I find that it's not like the case. It has happened to me that some people said like, oh yeah, but look, like we've increased here, but the keyword that I was trying to target, or the keywords that we were trying to target were these ones, and these ones we haven't improved. And maybe these are the ones that are closer to conversion for us, right? So I would say to check these first thing. And then I also was thinking, I think Joe mentioned something interesting. Look, go back to the brief, right? And see what they were offering. Because sometimes what I feel as well is like some people look for some very, very transactional things and they don't think about what they want their SEO strategy to be in 2-3 years. So do you have a vision for your SEO strategy? And if you have a vision, what is that vision? Are they helping you reach that vision? Should you put a vision with someone? And maybe the final thing that I would say is like, if, because I felt from the question also, maybe that person not sure how comfortable is feeling with this agency, they always can maybe try to talk to another agency and look for another perspective. And maybe even if the agency is like a very big agency, like with a lot of clients, sometimes they really are very transactional. Maybe look for someone who has a smaller websites, or not smaller website, but smaller amount of clients, and maybe can dedicate a bit more of quality time to you. So that would be my thoughts.
I'd like to add a bit on this to generalize for anybody who says my rankings are great, but I'm not making money out of it. I'd say have a look. Are you getting less traffic and as a consequence not making as many sales, but your website's conversion rate is the same, just fewer people you're converting? Or is it a matter of you're getting that traffic, but your conversion has gone down? Because it really makes a difference where you can action something to improve it. If you're just getting less traffic than you did before, you need to look outside of your website and try to understand where is this traffic going. Are people using AI overviews instead of organic listings? And maybe that's why they get different websites recommended and fewer than before, and now they're going to competition because of it. Did they give up on using search engines altogether? I don't know. Maybe they use just AI specific engines like Perplexity, for instance, where you don't even have organic listings. Or maybe they do their shopping in a different way. Maybe you have a competitor who's bidding aggressively on your terms and now stealing your organic traffic through their PPC. Like it could be so many. And if you have an agency, have them study it because they will know how to do it really well. That's what they do. But if it's internal, so you're still getting the traffic, your conversion actually plummeted. Maybe it's a matter of UX. Maybe you have some bad reviews somewhere and people read them while they decide to buy and then don't want to buy anymore. Have a look at your internal user journey and see where are the steps where people start falling off, and then analyze those steps to try to understand, are they falling off because you made some changes and maybe the features are not clear anymore? Maybe you had the price increase and now people don't like it anymore. Maybe, as I said, you've had some bad press or something, and as people are ready to kind of press the buy now button, they're like, oh, let me just quickly check before I do that. So study internally if that's the case.
Amazing. Amazing answers, by the way, everybody. I think the only thing I would add is that if you're concerned about whether the actual search results themselves have changed, often with rank tracking tools, when you're doing comparison, you can actually see what the search results look like. You can get a snapshot. So what you could do is if there are particular terms or types of terms that you're worried about, you could just get them to share those snapshots if they have them, so that you can see if there are more featured snippets or if they're, AI overviews or whatever. You usually get some sort of snapshot. So that would help you work out how much they've changed. And then I would just say, just make sure when it comes to the reporting that you're separating brand and non-branded terms, and that you're also breaking down sections of the website in tools to find. I would pull your data into something like Looker Studio or use something like SEO Stack and basically try and break everything down to work out, are there particular commercial pages that have seen a jump or a drop in rankings and traffic? For instance, you might be getting more blog post traffic and that might not be as commercial, and therefore you're not seeing that commercial reality. So I think when it comes to this is also a reporting question that I would ask lots of questions and get them to give you more specific reports on what's happening. And then because you've mentioned rankings, maybe that's one of the key KPIs. Maybe you need to change the KPI so that you're focusing more on sales from SEO rather than rankings as a way of determining success. That's all I've got to add. Joe, do we have anything in the chat?
We have, yeah, there's actually quite a lot in the chat. So thank you for that. So Simon says that the commercial reality is your KPI. And of course, it depends. You need to sit down with the agency, review the SEO strategy, like we mentioned, and how you can make it more effective. SEO is not always the answer, though. So that's a good point on that one. Gordon's talking about that it's really important to have this transparent, open dialogue with your agency, because maybe the metrics that they're tracking are not what you or the stakeholders are actually interested in, or what's important to the business. And again, sort of going back to what Isaac said, have a look at your brief. When was it? Maybe things have changed. The SEO agency might be able to amend their reporting or strategy to give you better visibility. I'm sure that they would want to. Nobody likes to deliver poor results, poor work. And also, he says to request some data on the ROI of the campaigns, depending on the type of business, and if the metrics can have a monetary value attached to it. So you could look at things like micro conversions. Make sure you've got those set up within your GA4. Monsi's talking about the commercial reality does not always reflect a great increase in traffic. Maybe it's not qualified traffic, or maybe it is, but you might have a bit more competition. The SERP results have changed. You're not really getting the traffic that you wanted because there is more competition out there. Rob said, step one, define higher rankings. Yes, good point. So ranking shouldn't always be the main or one of the main metrics, as Monty said. Look and see the commercial KPIs. So lots of chat there. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Actually, just on what Rob's mentioned, I think that's really important that sometimes with sort of SEO tools, you tend to, that you're measuring rankings, you tend to input the keywords that you want to track in the first place that determine success. But sometimes these keywords can be ones that you sort of set up 10, 15 years ago, and that you're just basically judging the success of your website on sort of 200 keywords or something, when actually so much more is happening, and that's such a small window of the site. And one thing I have noticed is that some people also add things like branded keywords into these rank tracking tools. And of course, you're going to be ranking really well for your brand, but that feels like cheating a little bit, that you should be ranking for your brand, but to include them in all the rank trackers and then judge that as success doesn't seem quite right. So I think definitely look at what it is that you're looking at in the first place to define that success. Are you basing higher rankings on just those 200 keywords? Or actually, are you looking at the site in total and all your products or services or whatever it is, and seeing, because maybe you've added, if you're a travel website, maybe you've added a new location and that's not included in those original keywords, or if you sell products. I can see, Rob, you got your hand up, very polite. Come on in.
I just wanted to mention something on that, because we are kind of a travel website, and someone mentioned average position earlier. And over last year, we started playing with Google things to do in the travel space. So what we saw was our average position got way, way worse, but it didn't mean anything, because suddenly with some of the stuff we're doing, we're ranking for Empire State Building and Niagara Falls. And you can imagine the sort of volume of search those things have. So suddenly we were having hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands towards millions of impressions, and an average position of 50 to 100 on a load of stuff. So our average position across the board got way, way worse. But it meant absolutely nothing, because all of the core traffic stayed roughly the same. We just had these huge volume keywords that were now skewing the rest of it. So average position means nothing. So just try and, like you said, filter out your traffic for brand, or filter out stuff that means nothing and look at the core stuff that does.
Amazing. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Rob. Sorry, I was looking at Simon as I said that.
You're welcome, Dave.
Just to add, the reverse can happen as well. Your average position could improve dramatically, especially if you're in a niche where you rank a lot with images, like you are, Rob, with travel, because all of a sudden your images could be pulled in like an image pack or an image carousel, which ranks first. So your impressions will be off the roof, your average position will be amazing, but you're getting no clicks. So that can happen as well.
Amazing. I keep saying one last thing to add. One last thing to add is, what part of the question is, they're basically saying if I pay more, they'll do more. And I think with SEO, you can't really control the outputs, but you can control the inputs. And I would just ask them, okay, so if we spend X amount more each month, what are you guys going to do differently? What things are you going to be doing? And sort of get a list of what activities they're going to add on top of what they're doing at the moment, rather than solely relying on, we're going to get you better rankings or whatever. Actually find out what they're going to do, because like I said, that's the only thing you can control. Joe, I can see lots more in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a lot of interaction from this question. So we have, Pretty's talking about, funny enough, there are times when brands don't rank for branded keywords. And then Monty's saying, except for those who live out their brand, which makes their traffic spike at different times. Well, Leeds actually asked, did you ask the agency what more they would do by taking more money? And John said, do more fancy lunch. Yeah, I wonder if they do actually take you out if you're meeting them in person. And yeah, Monty's asked, what did they actually do in the first place for you? Yeah, and we also have Naveen saying that the intent behind the keyword, it's important to look at that, because actually he has a plumbing service provider, and then their page gets 20,000 impressions for this term water heater, but then in Google Search Console, the average position is 87. So no one's really going to be buying the term water heater, are they? I'm not sorry, buying, but I'm doing something around that. Also, a point about a keyword. So Simon says to look at which long tail keywords convert the best and focus on them. I think we mentioned something about the keywords earlier. So sorry, just going through all the chat. Yeah, lots. I think this is a great question. So yeah. I hope the person that asked this feels that we've answered their question. But of course, if anybody has any other questions, do drop it in the chat.
I love how although I'm the one asking the questions from here, I have no control on this, because I get it wrong every week, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's to be a really quick question, and we end up spending ages on it. Okay, next question. How does Google handle infinite product scrolling? Ooh. Who would like to kick off on this one?
Okay, I hope this
Roxana,
doesn't end.
Go for it.
Yeah, I hope this question doesn't end like the one before with, sorry, we're not very technical, because unfortunately, it's not an easy thing to do. So one thing that's quite important to know, and maybe not everybody understands, is that when Google renders a page, it has a certain screen size that it uses, and it's not what you would expect with your home monitor. It's like a long page screen size. So then some of your scrolling might be in that, might be in view, but maybe not all of it, especially if we're talking about infinite scrolling. It might be way more that is not in that view. So in this case, you want to make sure you kind of build this as if it's different paginated sections that you can link from one to another, like using rel previous and next and whatever you use for pagination. But then use JavaScript to make it pretty and seem like it's this infinite scroll. So think server side, you actually have different pages. You can use parameters or whatever you want to use to define the different pages. Make sure you create the relationship between them. So bots like Googlebot can actually find all of them in a series. But then using JavaScript on client side, whenever you scroll to a point, it just load the next page in the same screen. And this way it looks like infinite scrolling, but you can make sure that search engines will find your pages easily.
Amazing. Cool. Joe, do you have anything to add?
I don't know.
No? What about the chat, Joe?
The chat is, Monty said, careful with SSR, CMS restrictions play a role at all times. So one comment so far. And internal linking to deep products. Sarah talking about, oh, now we've got more. So I was saying, test it. Thing is, infinite scroll might be exactly what your audience like and need. Idris, he said that you, Roxana, you summarized Google's documentation on this issue. She is absolutely correct. Back to what Monty said, careful with server-side rendering. CMS restrictions can play a role at some times. Yeah, so that's it from the chat for now.
Amazing.
Idris made a very good point. Always default to Google's documentation, right? If you're curious about something, you don't know how it works, check Google's documentation first. That's not to say, wait, is John on the call?
No, he's not today.
Okay,
You're okay.
that's
Go
not to
for
say,
it.
as if this is not going to
We
be
had
public.
another John.
But that's not to say that sometimes maybe it doesn't work in your case, or it's sometimes, advice could not be good for you. I'm just saying it happened before, but it's a very good starting point. And the more technical the problem, the more correct the documentation will be. There's not a lot of leeway in technical issues. It's either done this way or not. So start there. But then, have a read around. The SEO industry is full of people who have experimented different things, and they might have discovered other ways of doing stuff that might work better for you. So start with documentation, have a look around, read people you admire and see what they think, and then decide for yourself what works best in your situation, because usually one solution doesn't fit all websites.
Amazing. I'm going to try and squeeze this one in. So I'm going to jump to the next question if that's all right, unless somebody else wanted to say anything on that question. No? Okay, perfect. Sorry, you'll get why in a second, just because of the timing. We're looking for inspiration on how to use seasonal peaks like Valentine's Day and Mother's Day to build lasting visibility for our personalized flower, gift, and card online shop. Not just for these special occasions, but throughout the rest of the year. What strategies and campaigns have worked well for others? So I guess the reason I wanted to say this, because obviously Valentine's Day is coming up, it might be a bit tight to sort of put together a huge campaign, but they're sort of thinking you've got special days like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Easter, and so on coming up. What can they do to basically benefit for the rest of the year? Is that even possible?
I think perhaps if I understood the question correctly, so that person already is successful with these things on those campaigns and they want to utilize these further, right? So what I would say is like here, email inbound marketing would be like the perfect solution. Like, can you somehow at the end of the purchase try to invite people to subscribe to your newsletter, or maybe can you like when you send the email with the final product, whatever, like the sending those emails that you receive for when your product is going to reach your destination, whatever, maybe invite on those ones also, like, hey, we just try to do some campaigns there just to attract some customers, right? Because I would, from the SEO point of view, it's gone very difficult to really like reutilize those pages that maybe you've worked on Valentine or Mother's Day and to do something about it, because they have a seasonality, and I think that's how it is, right? Maybe you can also try to look for other keywords, other terms that maybe don't have that much seasonality, or just find a lot of terms with a lot of seasonality, a lot of them, right? Like that maybe you could also use. I think it was saying something about flowers, right? Like, so maybe some men also like flowers. So I mean, for Father's Day, you can do a campaign for Father's Day and you can try to make it viral. I don't know. So things like that.
I forgot about inbound marketing and how important that is. So that was a good reminder for myself. From a technical point of view, you want to create an evergreen page. You don't want to have to create a page every year and then redirect it to the new one and God knows what, because some of your authority might fall off through the redirect, even if it's a permanent one. So just create an evergreen page. Don't call it 2024 Valentine's Day. Just call it Valentine's Day, right? And then every year you can update the content to say 2024 offer, 2025, and so on. And I think one of the best examples that I see quite often is Boots. They have a £10 Tuesday offer. So if you go on that page on any other day that's not a Tuesday, the page has a bit of text about the offer and what it means. But if you go on it on a Tuesday, it has products at £10. But then again, Wednesday, just the text. It's the same URL. It never changes. If you search for it, it will come up because it works. So be more like Boots in this case.
There's some good points, Isaac and Roxana. I would say for this one, and they said it's an online shop, right? So if this is in the UK, but it's still an online shop, I think globally as well, because Mother's Day in the UK, it's in March, but actually in many other countries, it's actually in May. And Valentine's Day, it's very big in the US and the UK, but in Barcelona or in Catalonia, you got San Jordi, and that is bigger than Valentine's Day.
Bigger, yeah.
So maybe you can think about if you're global and you're not having to ship things in, through the post, maybe you can look into sort of expanding in that way. And the other thing actually is what you mentioned, Isaac, about email marketing. What you can do is also give people the option to opt out. So, for example, Mother's Day and Father's Day, some people don't have their parents. So they may want to be part of the newsletter where things about Valentine's Day or things about, it could be anything, Friendship Day, but they might not want to always hear news about their mom or dad. So that actually then creates a bit more of a sort of, I guess, they would feel better signing up to a newsletter than if they just got loads of newsletters about moms and dads. So I think you could actually look at that, how you can tailor your campaigns more to people's, what they would like to hear from you, not just, oh, sign up to our newsletter. And I think in terms of the seasonal peaks, back to things like, I think you mentioned about flowers. I think everyone likes to get flowers. So maybe you could also have more of a dedicated, like a flower page, or, to show your appreciation. And that could be under sort of friendship or, sympathy type when someone passes, or could be just around celebration. But it doesn't necessarily need to be always around a specific Mother's, Father's, Valentine's Day.
Great. I really like the thing about using the same page, I think. And if you're creating it for the first time this year, chances are actually you might benefit from it next year and the year after rather than this year if you start sort of building up that sort of authority of the page and excitement around it. I think these events are really good opportunities for creating new content and doing things like digital PR campaigns and building relationships with journalists, because when something like Valentine's Day happens, in the papers and on websites, they want to write about these things. And there are loads of different angles that you can take. So, for example, people talk about things like proposals or first dates on Valentine's Day, or they're writing about things like gifts for him, gifts for her. And it's like a really good opportunity to get your business and your products into those lists and featured. And because people are going to want to talk about things like proposals, for example, you could do some surveys and get some data and stuff like that, and try and find ways of getting your business mentioned in these places. That, yes, that is for these occasions, but actually that will also help you throughout the rest of the year, because you're kind of getting your name out there and getting sort of coverage and links and so on, pointing back to your site and all of that stuff. John's not here, so we can talk about links. It's fine. Yeah, I'm just checking. But I think they're really good excuses to come up to sort of share content on these occasions. And as I said, it may not be that you totally benefit from it this year, but say, for instance, you write something amazing about proposals on Valentine's Day, and obviously you want to make sure you insert your brand in some ways. So if you sell kind of proposal gifts or anything like that that's relevant, or gifts to make a proposal better, you want to make sure that you're part of that content. But it's sort of one of those things that you might benefit the following year. And also, if you have a general kind of gifts for her, gifts for him type page, that also might benefit from sort of campaigns like this. But anything like this, journalists and bloggers are already going to be writing about Valentine's, Mother's Day, and those at Easter and so on. And so this is a great opportunity to give them what they want and build relationships with those journalists for the rest of the year. Great. Do we have anything in the chat, Joe?
We've got loads of things in the chat, so I'll just quickly share, because then we won't have time for our last question. So Simon talks about start building your seasonal presence 11 months before. Once he said that, make sure that your seasonal pages are optimized in the site map. And we also have, I'm just saying, email in combination with PPC and social media do work wonders. Lot has mentioned to build these evergreen pages that rank all year, like Valentine's Day flowers instead of Valentine's Flowers 2025. Like you mentioned, Roxana, keep them updated with fresh content and link to them all year round. And also, you could create off-season content like best just because flowers, or how to pick the perfect gift anytime, which is great. You have a solid email and content strategy, so you could have quizzes, guides, gift reminders. It just keeps people a lot more engaged, really, besides those peak seasons or beyond the peak seasons. Also, SEO-friendly blog posts, things like romantic gift ideas for every occasion. I like that one. It helps you to stay visible in between the holidays. Sarab's talked about having social media influencer marketing. So run these different themed monthly campaigns, leverage user-generated content, and collaborate with micro-influencers. Then you could also do digital and PR campaigns. So use emotional storytelling, seasonal PR stunts, and subscription box launches to stay relevant all year round. Waleed's talked about this one. I quite like this idea, creating a year of love or a year of gratitude. It's a campaign that highlights your personal products as a way to show appreciation and love throughout the year, which is good. Isaac, that was a good point, but you mentioned about using Google's trends to understand when people start searching for these things like Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, because some people are really in advance. Idris talked about the majority of Nigerian women prefer food or money over flowers. I should visit. I would like to visit, Idris. And yeah, I do not like flowers. I prefer food or money too. And yeah, actually, Roxana said this is an ideation session. So I hope the person that asked the question feels that we answer the question a lot. I think we add a lot of tips here. And yeah, we got 3 minutes left for our last question.
Cool. I'm just going to quickly add that also, if you sold products this time last year, you could also reach out to those people and find out, particularly if it's like first date gifts and things like that, you can find out if they're still together and maybe do some fun things around that for social and digital PR. And yeah, but I think with these major dates, they're a really good opportunity to get eyeballs on your brand. So, and that will help you for sort of the rest of the year. So getting into places that are talking about, I don't know, flowers or cards or whatever it is. Have we got time? Oh, we've only got 3 minutes left. So we'll go to our regular question, which is basically, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO? Roxana, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
Well, I just did my objectives for the year, so I know I have like a list. I can tell you is diversifying traffic sources. So we know everything that's changing in Google is kind of affecting some people. So it's good to prepare and have other places where traffic comes from. And especially I'm looking into AI engines because who isn't? We all want the traffic. Another thing I have on my list is around looking at conversion more than traffic and ranking and things like that. So to kind of try to understand how my organic traffic behaves and acts and interacts on my website more than looking at rankings and trying to spend time there. And then I think another big one for me is to play more with content. And I think this will be different than what Isaac does because I'm looking at it from a NLP point of view, playing with embeddings and trying to understand if there's something there in terms of optimization that we can work around with or not. So that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Amazing. You had me, when you spoke at Search London, you had me in a whole rabbit hole afterwards into embeddings because your talk was really fascinating. I don't know if that was
Perfect.
Recorded, but yeah, definitely
I
recommend.
like to ruin lives like that.
Yeah, I literally spent the next few days reading everything Mike King's written on it and like testing and so on. Isaac, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
Difficult to say. What I would say one thing, I'm not really looking for lots of chats like about AI this year. I think last year we had too many, like perhaps at some point people were just repeating the same things and I'm like, okay, we need to move on. So that is the first thing that I'm wishing not to see as many as other years, but like it could be interesting to see how inside of the AI, like how these deep seek, right? Like, or deep, how they're doing this year. It would be interesting to see like the fight with all these people. I'm gonna use something that Roxana says. She's like more wishing to look on the content side of things, and I'm more into the tech side of things because sometimes also like I've been at this position at Olafly for only like 6 months, and still there is a lot of things that maybe are not working 100% how they should, and there's so many things to do always when you work in a new place, and I really want to take some time to dig deeper into some more technical things to make sure like all the content, everything looks great, and that we don't have massive amount of redirections that they for ages, like things like that. We want to make sure that we provide something clean. So yeah, I would say that, and maybe just copying Joe, like events. This is always like I'm copying Joe. Sorry, Joe.
That's okay. That's good. No, I really like events. Yeah, we have our first Search Barcelona at the end of February. So those that are coming, thank you for signing up. We've already got 50% of tickets sold. So I'm really excited for the events that's taking place. Also, there's WTS Fest next month, WTS Fest London. So excited to do that. I'm honored to be and grateful to be a volunteer. So I'll be at that. And also really excited about some of the learnings. We talked about this last week. I'm just sharing in the chat just about all the learnings that we can do within SEO. So share the learningseo.io that's set up by Leda Solis, and also the SEO FOMO newsletter. If you haven't signed up yet, do sign up because it helps to keep you up to date with the news.
Amazing. Right, let's stop there because we're a minute over, 2 minutes over. Just thank you so much to Roxana and Isaac for joining us. Joe, thank you for co-hosting. Thank you to those who watched live and those watching afterwards on YouTube. And thank you to those that submitted the questions. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for coming. Thank you,
Bye.
Isaac, Roxana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.